Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here talking some pick five strategy for Churchill Downs on Saturday. Their late pick five sequence is an all stakes pick five that spans races 7 through 11. The grade 3 blame stakes is the feature race. That's the 10th on the card. Mike and I did an individual preview of that one if you want to check it out on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. But really, every race in this sequence is an interesting one to talk about. It begins with the Audabon in race 7, going right on through the Shawnee for the older females on the dirt, the Arlington for the older males on the turf, the blame that I mentioned, and closing things out with the regret for the 3-year-old fillies on the turf. And Mike, not an easy ticket to put together.
No, these races are very, very strong. Every one of them. There are several different horses I think you have to sort through to try to get to, your opinions, David, and see where you land as far as these horses go. The opening leg here, I mean, you can see from the morning line, you kind of go through these horses. I don't really feel like there's any standout in this race, although, one of the horses, the second choice on the morning line anyway, Scipio, dropping out of a grade 1. It feels like he's in a really good spot here, but man, he doesn't have to win, and there's not a lot of pace in this race.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what you did here, Mike. And, I agree that Scipio feels like he's one of the horses to beat. He's just kept some very good company recently. I know coming off a performance that was maybe a little disappointing in the American turf last time, but that was an awfully tough spot, and he's getting some class relief here. Some others in this race are stepping up in class, so it's going to be interesting to see how he stacks up against some of those horses. And you can tell from the morning line, yeah, it seems like it's pretty competitive. So I think you can go one of two ways. You can maybe lean on somebody or try to turn this into a spread race. I know what I did, but let's take a look at your grid for this race, Mike. And I think we're going to lean a little bit on Scipio here.
I wanted to lean on him. You're right that when you sort of go back and look at his most recent race, there was a way tougher race than this one. I think the best that you could have hoped for Scipio in there was he would get the trip that he got. The trip actually worked out for him. He got an inside run to the stretch, and you know what? He just wasn't good enough to beat those horses. But that was a really strong field. And he also faced a really good field 2 starts back, and I thought he ran way better that day. That was a good performance. I think if he shows up with that performance in here, I think he's going to be pretty tough. And, between him and the other short price on the morning line, and we'll see how they bet the race, Early Adopter, who is coming off a win for Top Connections, I just much prefer the 3 to the 8.
Yeah, Mike, and I don't know about you, but in that American turf last time, I felt like being right down on the rail on that turf course at Churchill after it had taken so much rain was not the best place to be. And we saw a lot of horses that are fanned very wide do well on Kentucky Derby Day, and even going back to, after the rain came late on Oaks Day. So I feel like Scipio does have some excuses for the last race. Obviously, you mentioned the class. So I've got him in the key slot as well, so we could take a look at my grid for this race. But I'm going to turn this into more of a spread race. I did not have a strong opinion here. Scipio is one of the horses that I want to use. I did put Early Adopter in the key category, Mike, not because I'm convinced that he's quite as good as Scipio yet, but he does feel like a horse is moving in the right direction. And his last race, while he is stepping up against the tougher field than the one he beat last time, I was at least respecting the fact that he was the only horse to make a big run from way back. It was a race where nobody was really changing position except for Early Adopter at the end of that race. And maybe he is one that just kind of needed his return from the layoff at Tampa and did take a subtle step forward last time and can continue in that direction, because I thought he did show some talent during his 2-year-old season, races that looked like he might be able to build upon, and maybe that's going to happen now. But he is one that's going to need some pace to close into, and the pace of this race is a little tough to read, Mike. I gave a long look to the number 5, Charlie's to Blame, and you could say I ultimately ended up downgrading him all the way to the defend category as I'm spreading using horses in the key and use category above him. I questioned the distance with him, and I was wondering if maybe he comes back to the field, if it opens it up for some closers to make late runs. Another reason why I've got another closer like the number 6 World Beater in there as well. Probably want a little bit more than the 9-2 that he is on the morning line, but I've liked each of his last 3 races against Maiden Company, all on the turf, especially liked his race 2 back where he chased home the talented Dublin's Knight to be second in that spot, and then one last time going this distance at Churchill. So he felt like another one with upside, Mike, but at the end of the day, this is a race where I didn't have a strong opinion. I want to use a lot just to try to get through it.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I'm more favorable towards Scipio than you are. I think this is the kind of race where I would lean on him because I really do like his overall form. I feel like I like maybe Charlie's to Blame a little bit more than you do too. Yeah. I'm afraid that this horse is going to get loose on the lead in this race.
I'm afraid of it too. I just question the distance with him, and he's a horse that he has not gone on the way that I really was expecting him to. I guess I can forgive the Jeff Ruby Stakes last time, but I was even a little disappointed in his Kitten's Joy, where it looked like he got a really good trip, and it got closer at the end than I was really expecting it to. So Mike and I going in slightly different directions with our coverage in the Audubon. Let's move on to race 8. It is the Grade 3 Shawnee. This one going the mile and a 16th distance on the dirt for the fillies and mares. And Mike, there's a horse in this race that if she produces her top effort is going to be awfully tough to beat. That's the number 1, Where's My Ring? And I think the big question with her is which version of Where's My Ring are we going to get? Because she earned that 103 buyer, second off the layoff 2 back at Oaklawn, where she looked like a horse that might be able to challenge some of the top players in this division, like a Torpedo Anna. Well, she got her chance against Torpedo Anna in the Apple Blossom last time and was a disappointing third as kind of everyone's clever pick to beat that foe. So you kind of have to wonder where she's at this point in time. And then you throw in the fact that she's got a trainer change since the last race. So kind of wondering how you're evaluating her and the rest of this field.
Yeah, I mean, listen, ultimately, I guess I didn't quite trust her enough to just sort of, lean on her here. Although I do think that if you just told me that they're all going to show up and run their best race, I think she does have the best race. I don't know that it's going to that I could count on her to run it in here, but we can throw my grid up there now. I mean, to me, there are a bunch of horses in this race, David, that I don't like. And, I just felt like this was kind of a 2-horse race, at least the way I handicapped it. It was either going to be Where's My Ring, or it was going to be Jin Jin coming off of, I guess you'd call it a really surprising performance last time, first time for Brendan Walsh. But go back and watch the race. Didn't look like she lucked into that win at all. I understand that the big favorite in there, Just FYI, totally bombed and then was retired immediately after. But there were other good horses in there. And Jin Jin just dominated that field with a big figure in there. And the longer I looked at it, the less I wanted to split these 2 horses. I was using both.
Mike, when I was initially working out my ticket, I put this race together exactly the same way that you did. I had the 1 and the 7 in the key category. But as I was thinking about it more and trying to narrow things down a little bit to make it a little more affordable, I thought I spread in the first leg. I don't want to use the 2 favorites as key horses in the second leg, so I'll try to lean a little more on one of them. And the one that I trust a bit more is Where's My Ring, just because she's got that big effort 2 back. And the Apple Blossom last time, I was rewatching some of the coverage, and Naira had their team out there. I was listening to their paddock analyst, Maggie Wolfendale, and she was explaining prior to the Apple Blossom that Where's My Ring actually lost both of her back shoes in the paddock. She was acting up, and they had to reshoe her in the paddock. That's never ideal for any horse. And it's information that I think not every horse player is going to have access to. So just thought that maybe that might have been a slight excuse for her, because she shaped with the kind of talent during her 3-year-old season as a horse that if she took that step forward, like it appeared that she did to back at Oaklawn, that she really could be a player in this division. I don't care so much about the trainer change to Peter Miller. The stats for him actually aren't that great doing that, but just interested about the fact that he entered her a couple spots in California last weekend, scratched there, likely to ship here now. Feels like he's searching for the right kind of spot. Sometimes I take that as a good sign for trainers, just try to feel like they've got a horse that can win, trying to find them to get them in that spot where they actually can deliver the victory. And Jin Jin, I agree. Her last effort looks legitimate when you look at the field that she beat and how they've done since then. It's just she was such a big price that day. Now she's going to be at most the second choice in here. It just feels like the value's gone on her. So that's really my only knock against her. But if she is the horse that she showed she was last time, she is going to be awfully tough for this field to beat. And Mike, we didn't include anybody else in this race. Maybe it's a spot where some might want to throw in a horse like Hoosier Philly or the likable Free Like a Girl. But for me, neither one was really a winning enough type that I wanted to upgrade them in this spot.
No, I agree with you. Free Like a Girl, really, really cool horse, but I don't need her in this race. I would, never bet Hoosier Philly in any stakes race going forward. I just didn't really like anybody else enough in this race, and I took a long look at several different horses, including the Brad Cox horse. I mean, I guess Alpine Princess will get bet. I don't think she's really any good at all, and she's got several losses on her card that I just don't like.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought her up. I guess we're kind of taking a stand against Alpine Princess in this race, because you're right. She is a horse that could take money in this race, especially based on that 96 buyer she got in the Remington Park Oaks. I think that's a little tough for me to buy. And I agree. Since then, she's just kind of been a big disappointment. So she was not for me in this spot either. Let's move on to race 9, the Grade 3 Arlington. This one going the 9 furlong distance, or I should say mile and a 16th distance on the turf course for the older males. And another race, Mike, that looks awfully wide open. Hard to really know where the center to this race is. I guess the horse to beat is the one that's listed as the morning line favorite, the number 8 Mercante, based on his recent form. But he kind of reminds me of a horse that we'll talk about in the next race, Banishing. You kind of wonder if this run of good form, it's just been 2 races for him, but you wonder where it came from and you wonder how long it's going to last, because he has put 2 races in a row together that are going to beat this field. But you just wonder if he is a horse that can hold it together, because based on all of his races prior to those last 2 efforts, he's a 15 to 20 to 1 shot in this spot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I finally got done with the race and went through it again to try to figure out who I was going to use in here, I decided I don't want to get beat by him necessarily, but I also don't really want to lean on him too hard. I don't really have any knocks on the last 2 races. They're both fast. We can go a little more in depth with the Turf Classic if you want to. As we move along here, he ran fine in there, but it's not like, I watched that race and thought, oh man, they come back in a race like this and he can't lose. There are other good horses in here. And, I kind of preferred some of the others, and, we can put my grid up there if you want. We'll just move right into it. To me, David, the horse that I like most in this race, and we'll see how they wind up betting it. The horse I like most in the race, though, is the 9, Brilliant Birdie. Just like, all of his races basically as a 3-year-old, I thought he ran deceptively well off the layoff this year in a race where he had no chance. And I know they dropped him back to a mile last time. I just thought he was much the best in that race. And I thought it was a real move forward for him. I don't mind them getting a little more distance for him to work with here. So I'm kind of really leaning on him. The other key horse for me is Hershey, the 4. He's also entered an allowance race earlier in the week. And I don't, he might run there. If he runs here, I want to use him because I think he's a real good horse. But I won't be surprised if they scratch and they wind up running him on Thursday.
Yeah, our colleague Marcus Hirsch reported in his race advance for the Thursday race that their preference is the Thursday race. Yeah. There is some rain predicted at Churchill Downs on Friday, so I guess you have a more confidence that the turf is going to be in top condition for Thursday. So I imagine that plays into the decision, but we'll see if he shows up here, because I did not include Hershey in my grid. He is a horse I would put in there somewhere. I think maybe I put him as a defend horse, but I would have liked him a little bit more if I had confidence he was going to run in here, but I'll adjust on the fly if he does. Mike, let's go to my grid for this race, because I do want to do 2 things. I want to comment on Brilliant Birdie, but also dive into the Turf Classic a bit. I guess I will start with the former. You mentioned the opening verse and Brilliant Birdie being much the best. I have a different opinion about that race. The number 5 Lagunos, I thought, got a tougher trip than Brilliant Birdie, because they were both 3 wide around the track. And I thought that Lagunos provided the cover for Brilliant Birdie coming into the race, because Brilliant Birdie just kind of followed Lagunos every step of the way. And in that situation, I always kind of want to give a little bit of preference to the horse that is not only wide, but is the one that's making that first move into the race, never having cover doing so. And I can't say that I ever really liked Lagunos as a horse last year. I thought that he just kind of got good trips, lucked into some exacta and trifecta finishes at big prices, and knocked me out of some wagers in doing so. But going back through his form, he's run well over this Churchill turf course a number of times, better than I expected a number of times. Got back on that Churchill course last time, and I just thought ran a fantastic race, better than he ever had during his 3-year-old season. He really fought Brilliant Birdie all the way to the wire after making that first move. And I don't think he's going to be that short of price in this race, even with Flavien Prat getting aboard. I know he's 9-2 on the line. He feels like a horse that could drift up a little bit from there, at least to me. And I just view him as one that might have really taken the step forward from 3 to 4. So he's a horse that I actually wanted to key on in this race based on that observation from last time. And you also mentioned the Turf Classic. And I think your opinion of the Turf Classic is going to influence what you do with some of those horses, because it was one of those races where the entire field sort of came together and was bunched at the wire. And typically you want to downgrade those races a little bit because you feel like nobody really asserted themselves. But like the one horse that I really did want to include out of that race was the number 2 Cameo Performance, a horse that I know you've had some affinity for in the past. And I just didn't love the trip he got last time.
Yeah, I'm including him too. Yeah, I'm with you on the Turf Classic. To me, it's a hard race to evaluate because, when they all line up at the 8th pole there, and it was a 10-horse field, and they were all right there with a shot at it at the 8th pole. It makes me wonder, how good the race actually was. I'm including Cameo Performance on my tickets too. And maybe, if Hershey's not going to run here, maybe I could even upgrade him a little bit. I'm including him here, not so much because of the Turf Classic, but because of his other race. I feel like he's run some other races that sort of pointed him out. I didn't love his performance last time, but I could be forgiving for it.
Yeah, he was just really wide. He tried to make this 4 wide move around the far turn, probably earlier than he really needed to. And he got there in mid stretch and just kind of got tired at the end. And I think even cutting back a 16th of a mile could also work for him. And he drew a much better posted here. So I thought about upgrading Cameo Performance to the key category. Ultimately, I wanted to go a little bit thinner in this race because this feels like another race where people are going to be tempted to spread a lot. And I found something I liked about Lagos, and I really want to go with that opinion, and hopefully I can extract a little bit of value from this race. Let's move on to race 10, the grade 3 Blame. Like I said earlier, Mike and I did an in-depth preview of this race, so we'll try to condense our discussion of this one a little bit. And, Mike, this is one where you got a horse in the number 9 Post Time, who is the slight favorite on the morning line. And he showed a lot of class during his 2024 campaign. They tried a lot of different things with him. He was really up to the challenge almost every time to race competitively against whoever they pitted him against. And he's just coming back at a level that feels like it's right for him. It's just a matter of two things: whether or not he's going to get the pace that he needs, and also whether or not he's going to produce that top performance at 9 furlongs. We could take a look at your grid as you discuss what you think of Post Time in here.
Really more concerned with maybe the trip than I am the distance. I get that he does have to prove that 9 furlongs will be ideal for him. I think it's fine for him. I don't mind them pointing for some longer races this year. We'll see how it works out. The trip, I guess, could be a little more concerning, but I thought that this thing could get competitive up front anyway. And David, I just kind of feel like he's the best horse. I do have 2 keys up there. I really feel like I'll be leaning on Post Time in this race, though, and maybe demoting the other Most Wanted, who I have up there with him, maybe demoting him a little bit to a defend horse or a use horse. I like Post Time in this race, and to me, I have 2 opinions. I like him. The other horses I found really hard to separate. I want to use the 3 Antiquarian at a price because I think he's the upside horse in the race, and I don't want any part of Mystic Dan who's going to take money in here.
Yeah, we can take a look at my grid for this race. And I feel like Mike and I were kind of trying to go in similar directions in terms of not using too many horses in here. I have a few more on the use category than Mike does. But I wanted to include a little bit more value in the horses that I'm keying on in this race. Antiquarian is one of those that I've got in there. I think he's a horse that has a big chance to take a step forward second off the layoff in here. And I liked his 7 furlong return. He does strike me as a horse that is much more of that 2-turn dirt router. So I think you can expect him to show some improvement in here. And the number 2, Alexander Helios, he's 6-1 in the line. I think he'll be every bit of that, despite the fact that Irad Ortiz is riding. If this race holds together after scratches, there are so many horses that have to take money in here, like the horse Mike mentioned, Mystic Dan, Most Wanted, Banishing, who we'll get to in just a second. I feel like Alexander Helios should be in that 6-1 to 8-1 range. And he's got a race 2 back that I think makes him a serious win contender here. I didn't love the trip he got last time in the Oakland handicap. And I feel like we could see him rebound in this spot for the Saffie Joseph barn. So he's the other horse that I wanted to key upon. I didn't want to get burned by Banishing because he's been in such good form recently. I've got him in there. I have a lot of respect for Post Time. I've got him in there. I didn't necessarily view either of them as adding value to a ticket. I feel like as I'm getting deeper into the sequence, I want to prioritize some of my value-based opinions a little bit more, especially based on some of the decisions that I made earlier with races 1 and 2 in this sequence. So that's why I've got Banishing and Post Time ranked a little bit lower. But this is a race where it's easy to make a case for a lot of horses, Mike.
It really is. And ultimately, I feel like the one thing that struck me when I was finally all set, when all was said and done for me, is I trust Post Time. I just think he's a reliable horse who's going to run his race. Banishing's been so good. Is he going to keep being this good? I don't know if he is. Hall of Fame to me looks good on paper, but is he really that good? I'm not really sure that he is. Mystic Dan, I don't trust him to run that race anymore. Alexander Helios, you mentioned, I think he's interesting. Not sure he really wants to go this far. I don't know, man. I had questions about so many horses, and I had very few questions about Post Time. I just think he's a real good horse.
Yeah, I mean, if Banishing runs his best race, everybody else might be running for second because he has run some amazing races recently. We'll see if he can produce it again. I mean, my big problem with Post Time, and I hesitate to say this because I know he's taken a lot of criticism, Sheldon Russell, the rider, but I wish that he would ride this horse like a 10-1 shot as opposed to a 1-5 shot in one of these races, and just
Fair.
show a little bit more urgency to get him in the position he needs to be successful.
Very
we'll
fair.
see if that's the case. The race 11 that's closing out this Pick 5 sequence is the Grade 3 Regret. 11 runners signed on. This is the biggest field of any race in this sequence, and another pretty competitive affair, Mike. I'm curious to see what you did in here, because you've got some horses that I think are going to take money, like the number 7, Lush Lips, and the number 5, Classic Q. For me, there was clearly one of the two that I preferred in this race. But let's go to your grid first, because I think you've got some interest in horses that are going to be bigger prices.
I just thought this race was super interesting. I didn't really love the short prices in this race, but I guess we'll see if I'm right or wrong about that. I really thought, I think we agree on one of these horses too, actually.
Yeah.
If we were going through your grid, the 9 in here, Micaiah, who I just think is super interesting here at 20-1 on the morning line. And that filly is definitely a key for me in this race. We can talk about her a little bit more if you want. The other key for me, though, is Fixin' to Be, who is 10-1 on the morning line, I think, but I think is a horse who's way better than she looks on paper. We'll see how it all plays out. To me, she had an impossible trip in the Ginger Brew 3 starts back and just ran way better than it looks. Even her Swedish Champ, which I don't think it was quite as good, but even that race was one that there was just nobody was changing position in that race. And she just tried that wide run off the turn, didn't get there. It wasn't a great performance, but I wanted to be lenient there. I thought she ran really well, winning with a little bit more distance to work with last time at Keeneland. I really liked that performance, and I think it suggests that she has moved forward. I want to use her. I think she's good. I think she's going to be a price in here. So I have 2 prices on top. As far as the favorites go, I mean, I guess I just don't really get Classic Q. I think maybe we disagree about that. I'm not using that horse. I'll lose the Classic Q. Lush Lips, I'm not terrified to bet against her, but I do think she can win here. And so I have her in there on my ticket. It totally justified to me. I think was bad off the layoff, but I think she's better than that. And I wanted to give her the chance to rebound.
Yeah, so we'll go to my grid for this race. As far as Lush Lips goes, I'm kind of in agreement with you, Mike. She's a horse that probably didn't want to be as far back as she was last time in the Edgewood, but all in all, after fighting the restraint for maybe an eighth of a mile, she got a pretty good trip in that race and just was no match for Nitrogen. I question how good she really is, and maybe she'll go to the front in here, but is she going to lead them every step of the way going 9 furlongs? I don't totally trust her to do so. So that's why I've got her in the defend category. I wish I could make more of an excuse for Totally Justified's last race, because I liked her 2-year-old form. She was just bad last time. Yeah. So that leads me in the direction of my 2 key horses. I'll start with the bigger price first, Micaiah, who you mentioned you like a little bit. I'll just expand on her, Mike. I know that it looks like her 2 good efforts are the sprint races. To me, she is not a sprinter. She just won on talent at Kentucky Downs, going the 6.5 furlong distance. She ran better than it looks in the Jessamine. She got totally turned sideways at the start of that race, got down to the rail after that, but kept turning on all the way to the end against a pretty good field at that time of year. Didn't like the dirt. And then last time, they rode her like that was nothing more than a prep in the Mamselle. They just let her drop to the back of the pack. And when you watch that field come into the stretch and where she is, you kind of don't believe she's ever going to get up for third until she actually does it, because she was absolutely flying across the wire and then galloped out way ahead of the rest of the field. And you'll watch her run. And I was looking up some of the stride length data on her. Her stride length in the last race clocked in over 26 feet, which is very indicative of a horse that wants to go longer, not shorter. And I just think she's really going to appreciate the added distance in this race. And as for Classic Q, who we've got the difference of opinion about, Mike, her last race, she beat older horses. And I don't think it was a great field of older horses by any means, but she smashed them by almost 5 lengths. And you look through that field, Beyer gave it an 80. That's a number that when you start to take in stock of what the horses behind her had done in the past, that could have been an 85. It could have been a 90. And you look at the other turf races on that day, there were 2 other turf races. They were both 5.5 furlong sprints. There was kind of nothing to compare this race to on that card. And I wonder if that's a race that might be a lot better than the 80 Beyer suggests, especially the way that she won it. She was so much better than that field. And I look back at her prior from a Gulfstream. I actually thought she ran pretty well with the trip that she got in the Sanibel Island, just wide every step of the way. And she might be one of these Mark Cassidy horses that took a couple starts to get there, but has just gotten good. And when these Mark Cassidy horses have gotten good in the past year, they typically stay good. So among the shorter prices, she was the only one that I wanted, and she's my other key horse in this race.
Yeah, I can see it. I just don't. Yeah, my problem with her, she did look good winning last time, and you make some really good points about that race. I just don't like her other races, and so if she's going to be the favorite in here, I'm trying to beat her because the two horses that I really like, the 4 and the 9, they're going to be big prices in here, and if I'm right about them, they're the horses that I want to be alive to.
And I'll say you made some good points about Vixen to Be. I got really caught up in how weak I thought her last field was that she beat. But her races 2 and 3 back, you're right. She did some running in there better than it looks on paper. Let's go to our grids for this race, Mike, and we'll throw up yours first and talk a little bit about how you're looking to put this thing together.
Yeah, again, I feel like just the first leg to me, I'm going to, try to maybe take some backups, but I really want to sort of lean on Scipio. I think it's a great spot for that horse. The second leg of this race to me is a 2-horse race. If the 1 of the 7, if they don't show up in there, I'm getting knocked out of this thing because I'm not using anybody else in these races. I'm against, as we get further down into it, the Blame, which is kind of a wide open race. I like Post Time. I'm against Mystic Dan. I think that's maybe the sort of 2 takeaways that I have from that race. And if I make it to that final leg, I will take some backups of the, some more logical horses. But man, you laid out the case for Mackay. I'd really like to be alive to that horse. And I'd really like to be alive to Vixen to Be, who might just be a little better than she looks.
Let's go to my grid for this race. And I've got to decide how I want to play this one. I mean, we put these key use defend grids together, and you don't have to play them as a Steve Christ style ABC wager. You could just play the all keys wager. You can put them together in different ways. I'm trying to decide if I want to play this as an ABC style wager or if I want to just lop off all of my defend horses and just take those from the key and use category and sort of play that ticket 5 by 2 by 2 by 4 by 2, which I think would be $80, because I like the horses I put in the key and use category. I don't really like the defend horses. I'm afraid of them in competitive races, but it's sort of trusting yourself to be right with your opinions or being a little bit afraid of some horses that you didn't use and leaning on, pushing yourself to sort of narrow 2 opinions down to 1 in certain races. So it's kind of making the decision, which path you want to go down. And I've got to make that decision before I put this wager in. But just speaking a little bit about how I put this together, from a structural standpoint, I think Mike and I were thinking a little bit similarly. I did spread more than Mike did in the first leg of the sequence. We both wanted to just use those 2 horses in the Shawnee. In the Arlington, that's the one where I'm going to try to lean a little bit. I really like Lagos. I think he's going to be value in that race. Cameo Performance is the other horse for me, but Lagos is the one that I wanted to lean on a little bit more. And I think I'd be comfortable with those 4 horses I've got between the key and use category and the Blame, because I'm comfortable leaving out Most Wanted. I think that horse is a little bit dressed up and he's going to be bad value in this race. So I'm fine if I don't use him. And then closing things out, I do think Classic Q is a legit favorite in that race. So I'm fine putting her in the key category. And as Mike said, Nakaya is going to offer great value if we can get her home in the last leg. And hopefully I can sort of thread the needle with whatever path I decide to take putting this together to get alive to a horse like that. But not an easy one to put together, Mike. And you do kind of have to make those tough decisions about what strategy you want to take. And that's one of the reasons why we do these videos, so we can sort of think a little bit more about it through our discussions and make sure that we're extracting value from enough spots that we're putting together a ticket that's actually worth playing.
Yeah, super challenging. Yeah, I don't think either one of us is expecting anybody to watch this video and throw those tickets that we put up there in as their wagers. But it's just it's the more important thing is to discuss the races and talk about how not only how you feel about the horses, but how you feel about investing your money into those horses, because it's not just about picking the winners, man. You gotta get the right ones in there at the right prices. And if you're leaving short prices out, that's fine. I mean, these aren't these 50-cent minimum bets. You don't need to cover the favorites if you do not like them. These bets aren't going to pay enough to keep including those horses and losing money on them every time that you're right. If you don't like them, don't use them.
I love that point that you made, Mike. Sometimes when we talk about these pick 5 wagers, we get so much stuck in that mindset of, well, I've got to try to cover my bases to hit this wager. But most of us who play this game day in and day out, you got to play the long game and think about saving your bankroll for the spots that you really like. And if you can cut out a few horses here and there that you don't really love that much, it's going to do you, it's going to serve you well in the long run. So I think it's always worth having those discussions, because I think sometimes we talk about these sequences and miss those key points about how to put these wagers together. So everybody, hope you enjoyed this discussion, and hopefully we gave out some ideas that you can use for this Pick 5 sequence on Saturday. Give us a thumbs up, like this video if you appreciate this kind of content. Also, leave us a comment down below. We'd love to know if you really like any horses in the sequence. If you have a strategy for how you want to put this together, throw up your comment, and we'll definitely be interested to hear about that. And also, make sure to subscribe to the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike and I have a lot of content planned from Saratoga next week about the Belmont Stakes and all the other stakes action around that Belmont Stakes Racing Festival. So subscribe to the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel so you don't miss any of it. Everybody, thanks for tuning in on the DRF YouTube, and good luck playing this Churchill sequence on Saturday.